Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, July 14th, 2022, and today we are going to be talking about the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I've been talking about the 2022 Senate race in Pennsylvania and the 2022 governor's race, and I've made a bunch of videos about it. But I haven't yet made a video talking about the 2024 Senate race in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, the reason why I haven't is because this is 2 years down the line. The most important election for the United States Senate and for the Democratic and Republican parties is happening right now and this November. But the Republicans seem to be setting their sights on something beyond the 2022 midterms and instead focusing on the 2024 Senate race. They are looking to target incumbent Democratic Senator Bob Casey, who is a three-term Democratic incumbent who has held some pretty interesting positions over the past couple of years, none more important than to the Republican Party of his more liberal shift in terms of his ideology. He first started out as a pro-life politician, very obviously, as a Senate Democrat, is not a pro-life politician, at least in action, rather than own personal preference. In addition to that, Bob Casey comes from a swing state. So Republicans are completely right to believe this race to be competitive, but taking a look at election history and taking a look at where we are right now in November of 2022, ahead 3 months down the line, I can't say that this move is something that I'm necessarily surprised about, but I don't know if it's actually the right move, or at least something that might be viable depending on what happens this November. And it is interesting, to say the least, that the Republican Party is already setting its sights on 2024. My initial reaction when seeing this article was that the Republican Party was just looking down the line to see what could be competitive in 2024. But when I found out who they wanted to field for 2024, it became very apparent that they had a specialized nominee. They had someone they want to be the nominee in 2022, but simply didn't get their way because of President Trump. The Republican Party is looking to field Dave McCormick. His name might ring a bell because he got second place in this Republican primary. An extremely close Republican primary, might I add, 1.34 million voters across the state, in which Dr. Oz, the Republican nominee for Senate, won this primary by less than 1,000 votes. Dave McCormick was so exceptionally close to being the Republican nominee, and I can tell you right now in full confidence that if Dave McCormick was the nominee, I would have already expected him to practically lock down this Senate race. Now, John Fetterman was always going to give it a good shot, but no one would have been a better Republican candidate than Dave McCormick amongst the field that could have ran. Now, there was the initial candidate, Sean Parnell, who seemed to be that frontrunner. He had received the Trump endorsement in early 2021, and he was on track to victory until he dropped out of the race. He dropped out due to family issues, and thus so many Republicans ran into the field. They ran into the race, and they decided to run for Senate, but Dr. Oz clinched the nomination because of President Trump's endorsement. The Republican Party in Pennsylvania refused to endorse. They stayed out of the race. They didn't want to specify who they wanted to win. But it became very apparent when the establishment Republicans started to back Dave McCormick at a very high level. And seeing this new article and seeing what the Republican Party and what the former chairman of the Republican Party in Pennsylvania has been saying, Dave McCormick was this star and hand-chosen nominee, and he lost the 2022 primary. So now they want to get him in the U.S. Senate. But I can't say that this is going to be easy. To give you a bit of background about Bob Casey and his election history, he was first elected back in 2006. Now, he was elected by an overwhelmingly large margin. And I get it. 2006 was a blue wave year. Now, I didn't vote in that election. I was merely 4 years old. But looking back at it, historically speaking, the Democratic Party won back control of the House and control of the U.S. Senate. So they did something that the Democratic Party hadn't been able to do in 2002 under George W. Bush's first term. And in this victory, Bob Casey was able to defeat Republican Senator, I don't know why I keep saying representative, Republican Senator Rick Santorum. He was the former incumbent, first elected in the year, actually not first elected, maybe he was elected back in 1994. Won re-election in 2000 by about 7 points, then went on to lose by nearly 20 percentage points across the state of Pennsylvania. Then you can head over to the next election that occurred in 2012, in which Bob Casey, on the same ballot that Barack Obama won the state of Pennsylvania, outperformed Barack Obama and won by about 10 points across the state. Then in 2018, he was up for re-election again, a state that had just voted for President Trump 2 years prior, that Bob Casey defeated Representative Lou Barletta by about 13 points across the state. So no matter what election you're looking at, Bob Casey has been a very strong Democratic nominee, where Democrats and Republicans in other positions across Pennsylvania haven't been so lucky. If you take a look, for instance, at the 2016 Senate elections, Pat Toomey only defeated Katie McGinty by 1.5%. This was a year where Donald Trump swung the state of Pennsylvania by about 8 points. In addition to that, was the first Republican to win Pennsylvania since George H.W. Bush in 1988. Yet on that ballot, Republican Senator Pat Toomey was only able to win by 1.5%. He didn't have this demanding and commanding margin that Bob Casey had, presidential election year or not, midterm election year or not, that will likely continue into 2024 based off of his electoral history. So the Republican Party is setting its sights on Bob Casey's Senate seat, and it makes sense, because Casey will be more vulnerable than he has been in past elections. But I can't say that I think Bob Casey is going to lose. But what I do think is that there are implications well beyond this 2024 competitive race that permeate into the 2022 race and the Republican Party's inability to set their sights on what is ahead of them, because sometimes they may see a race as a lost cause. Now, I don't see the 2022 Senate races for the Republican Party, specifically in this state, as a lost cause. Dr. Oz has a very good shot at victory, but I can't say he's the favorite. And the reason why I think the Republican Party is now setting their sights to 2024 is because of this lack of confidence in Dr. Oz's ability to win here this November. They're looking for opportunities to use Pennsylvania as a stepping stone to their Senate majority. But why not set their sights on 2022? Why is David McCormick going around with other top Republicans across the state on this tour of the state if he's not going to be running? All the speculation and all the indicators seem to indicate that he is going to be running. But why is this happening now? One of the main answers could be that the Republican Party doesn't exactly see Dr. Oz as this nominee that can help them expand their Senate control. Doesn't see them as this nominee that can win Senate control from the Democratic Party. And they're absolutely right in thinking that. Because as I have been saying, if you replaced Dr. Oz with Dave McCormick, Dave McCormick would be the favorite to win this Senate race. How is it that a Democrat is the favorite to win a Senate race that Republicans currently hold in a red wave year? This only happens with a strong Democrat, check, and a weak Republican, check. And that's exactly what happened here. The Republican Party refused to endorse in the Senate primary, but truly it would have made a difference. It would have made it so Dave McCormick would have won the Senate nomination, would have won the general election. Now, there's no guarantee that McCormick would have easily won that election, but again, I still think he would have been the favorite. In my most recent projection in the state of Pennsylvania, I have Pennsylvania going blue. That really only happens because of weak nominees. You take a look at past predictions in different circumstances, even in the beginning of 2022, I had it as a red state because I had more faith in the Republican Party here to put up a strong nominee. Fetterman was always going to be a formidable opponent to the GOP, but he should not be the favorite. He should not be the favorite simply because of our national environment, simply because of how close Pennsylvania was, yet he is. And this happens because of one person. One person that could have been easily prevented as being the Republican nominee had the GOP intervened and pushed Dave McCormick as much as they are now trying to push him for 2024. The Republican Party has realized they messed up. There is only one major reason as to why they would already be propping up Dave McCormick for a Senate seat that is 3 years away. And that's because they realized they had a very strong candidate. They had someone who could have won in a red wave. None of these Republicans, I think, would have been top-tier candidates. There are other Republicans out there that could do better. Dave McCormick would in 2024, or Dr. Oz would in 2022, or Dave McCormick would have done in 2022 should he had won that nomination. But amongst the field, he was one of the best. In fact, the best in my own point of view. So now that I see Bob Casey being this target for the GOP, I realize that this push for Dave McCormick probably comes out of guilt and the realization amongst the Republican Party that they messed up this upcoming Senate race. Because 2024 can be a target, but really only if they do well in 2022. Because this election history doesn't exactly tell me that the GOP can defeat Bob Casey, someone who has name recognition across the state, son of someone who also had name recognition across the state. Unless Bob Casey decides to retire in 2024, I can't imagine that the Republican Party would be the favorites to win that Senate race. I do think it will be competitive, but I can't say that it's going to be an automatic GOP pickup, as you might have in 2018 for North Dakota, or Indiana, or Missouri, because that was easily predictable. But Pennsylvania is always going to be a swing state. With McCormick now being that technical frontrunner for 2024, I question how much the Republican Party is actually investing in 2022. Because again, you should not be having these candidates visit around the state and focus on 2024 election when you have one at hand. I mean, it's as if the Republican Party, at least some of them, obviously not all of them, they are still going to be tirelessly fighting for this race, but there are some of them that seem to be giving it up And maybe it's the hardcore McCormick supporters that believe that the election was taken from McCormick, or that Donald Trump's interference and Dr. Oz's moving from New Jersey to Pennsylvania to run for Senate isn't something that they see as valid, or they see as a definitive or arguable point as to why Oz should be this Republican nominee. They may be angry. Because looking at it and looking at how close it was and looking how every single thing mattered, this wasn't some type of blowout primary as you saw in the governor nomination. This wasn't a blowout primary as to what you saw on the Democratic side in the Senate election, or the unopposed primary you saw on the Democratic side in the governor election. This was one of the most hotly contested primaries of the entire election cycle. And had Donald Trump not intervened, the Republican Party would be in a much better position for their Senate election upcoming. I can't say Donald Trump also doesn't have this track record of choosing the wrong nominees. But considering that Trump also has attacked McCormick, vilified him amongst the right, made it so that he lost a primary that he arguably should have won and was leading in up until the final bits. I mean, what we have seen here is that McCormick should have won this nomination, would have given the GOP a victory, whereas Oz very well might not, but Donald Trump took that from him. Republicans see McCormick as this shored up 2024 nominee, and I think they see him as that because they realize this time they won't let the primary get bogged down or clouded by some carpetbagger who moves to the state to run. That's exactly what Dr. Oz is. Carpetbagger might have a negative connotation, take with it what you will, but it is entirely true. Dr. Oz never lived in Pennsylvania. This is something that he moved to the state to run in because, realistically speaking, he wasn't going to win in New Jersey. If New Jersey was a swing state, he would be running in it. And now that he's the Republican nominee for Senate, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats don't exactly view him in such a favorable light as they might Dave McCormick or another Republican. So for 2024, I think we are going to start seeing Dave McCormick's ads and announcement of running sometime next year. I don't think he will bog down the race, and I don't think he will make such a wrong move, politically speaking, to announce a candidacy now. But I do think we should expect it sometime in the future. We should also expect the Republican Party preparing for it. Some resources that would have been focused on 2022 are now going to be focused on Dave McCormick. Again, he's going to be moving around the state. He's going to be campaigning around. And as the former chair of the state's Republican Party says, they absolutely encourage Dave to run. These are the same people who represented the political party that refused to endorse in the election. There were the same political party, the same statewide party that attacked Dave McCormick and pushed down his requests for a recount or undated ballots to be counted in this race. They made Dave McCormick the enemy of democracy very briefly, because I think they realized that this was only going to damage them later down the line. But that damage has already been done. The attacks from Trump have already been done. And their complacency and refusal to endorse has only helped them dig their own grave for this otherwise so easily winnable Senate seat. I mean, it's crazy to think about that this Senate race is even competitive. That in a year such as this one, the Democratic Party has a more viable shot at winning the Senate seat than the Republican Party. I mean, I look back to other blue waves, 2006, 2018. What was different? Because you take a look at 2022, arguably a good year for the GOP on par with 2018 for the Republican Party, for the Democratic Party. Yet Democrats win in this swing state, Trump state, by 13 points, but yet Republicans can't even crack 50% in this race. There is something off, and it comes down to candidate quality and just the overall Pennsylvania statewide environment. The Republican Party seems to have alienated voters in this primary process and in this general election process as well. Dr. Oz is not this strong candidate that the Republican Party needs him so desperately to be. That's exactly why they're setting their sights on a race that is 3 years away. This election would not even be in consideration if Dave McCormick was running. They would be running around trying to figure out who was going to run, but it wouldn't be their main priority. Their main priority would be this November election. This should not even be in discussion. And I get it. It is always going to be something that is talked about. The Republican Party is always going to be looking further down the line. Same thing with the Democratic Party. But the fact that so many top Republicans are comfortable saying McCormick should be the nominee, McCormick has the money to run, he has the name recognition, I would absolutely encourage him to do so. It's ironic coming from someone who previously served in the position under the same statewide party that refused to endorse in the race and could have avoided this debacle for their GOP entirely. It was their complacency and their inability to endorse, or unwillingness, should I say, to endorse in this race that made them potentially lose the Senate election. This race would be looking a lot better for them if their supposed rising star for 2024 was that 2022 nominee. And knowing just how close it was entirely possible. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.